Hey, good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Coleman. We're going to do a quick tutorial on drawing trees today. What you're seeing on the board here is exactly what I don't want you to do. Uh, this is kind of what everybody thinks of when they draw trees. It's the broccoli tree. No bueno. But Mr. Coleman, I love this type of tree. Okay, that's all right. If you want to draw a tree like this, it's all right. If you want to get a little bit more realistic, let's get started. So the first thing to think about when you're actually observing a tree, let's take a look at this beauty, 700-year-old oak. What do you notice about this tree? It definitely doesn't look like the first one we made of the broccoli tree. Um, a lot of curved lines, a lot of movement. And notice here, you've got this thick trunk. And then as things go, they get a little bit skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. Okay. At the ends, they get really skinny. And this is something you've probably observed in your own life with trees, but it's good to know for actually drawing them. Behind us, we've got kind of like a middle ground where there's nothing overlapping. It's more of like a design focus, but it still follows those same criteria that it gets thicker the farther you go down. So it gets nice and skinny by you get to the top. So what are we going to do here? So let's just try it. We have a thicker trunk, and then we're not even thinking about it as being a tree. It's just we're making these curved lines, and then we start making breaks. Just little roads, little happy roads to break in smaller roads and paths. And as we continue doing that, just make sure to get them smaller and smaller as you go down, all the way to just a thin little line. And you could have them overlap. You could have them, get really detailed. But essentially, we're just trying to make all these paths start really, really skinny and have it a little bit thicker as it goes to the trunk. So you do that, and then we're well on our way. Just a thick road, and it's getting skinnier as it goes down, no matter where it goes. Then the second thing that I want you to think about today is where's the light source coming from? So if the light source is coming from this way, you have this idea that this is a three-dimensional object, three-dimensional piece, where you might have highlights and lowlights. Notice the highlights here and the shading underneath. That's what I want you to think about as well, because this now becomes a three-dimensional type of an object when you're dealing with value and adding shading. So the first thing is to just kind of put in your shading lines. More pressure down is going to be darker tones. And as you release pressure on the pencil, it's going to be lighter. But most trees have a texture in their bark, and most of them have kind of like a very undulated texture where you're going to get a lot of lines to make it look realistic. We go back to this image, we've got all kinds of stuff going on here. We've got moss growing on it and other greenery on it. So there's all kinds of textures going on in this particular image. Oh no. Okay, so that's the tutorial for today. Try to draw a realistic tree, add some value to it to give it the impression that it's a three-dimensional object. Start thick and just keep making the paths go a little bit skinnier as you go down the lines. And you're well on your way to drawing yourself a realistic tree.